All right, let's have a real conversation. You and me. Let's have a real conversation. So the internet is on fire with talk about the WNBA, Caitlin Clark, and a massive lawsuit. We're seeing phrases like hostile work environment and even civil rights violations being thrown around about a basketball league, and it sounds insane. And the whole world seems convinced that a lawsuit is coming that could tear the WNBA apart. But is any of it real? Is there an actual legal case here, or are we just all caught up in the biggest social media firestorm in sports history? And we need to cut through the garbage. We're going to ignore the outraged clicks and look at the cold, hard facts and figure out what's actually going on. Because the truth is always more interesting than the hype. So, how did we get here, you may ask? How did tough defense suddenly become a federal case? And we'll get to the article in a minute. And honestly, it happened fast. It started with those welcome to the league rookie moments. Diana Taurasi basically called her shot before the season even started, saying reality is coming. And she wasn't wrong. A clear pattern of hits that looked a little extra started emerging. But the game changed when the conversation went from the court to the courthouse. And that's when people started using the term like hostile work environment. And the argument became that the WNBA, as the employer, has a legal duty to stop the players, from targeting Clark. And they argued the league was just sitting on his hands watching it happen. And think about it in the simplest terms. It's like you're the new star employee at a company and you're blowing every sales record out of the water. But your jealous coworkers keep accidentally tripping you in the hallway and deleting your files. It's one thing to have workplace rivalry, and it's another thing when you can't even do your job without fearing for your safety, and the CEO just shrugs and says, well, business is a contact sport. And that's the heart of the argument that has millions of fans believing something is deeply wrong. And to get why people are so furious, you have to look at the receipts they're using as evidence. This is about more than just physical basketball. The smoking gun, the clip everyone has seen is that blind side shoulder check from Kennedy Carter. It was off the ball. Had nothing to do with basketball, and it was so blatant that the league had to upgrade it to a flagrant one after the game, a flagrant one foul. And the one moment that was pure gasoline on a fire. Now, if you don't believe me, we could pull it up on X when it came to this whole Kennedy Carter situation with Caitlin Clark. Just to pull up the receipts, right? Because I want you guys to see the imagery here and put the visuals together. That one shoulder bump, right? You guys just seen it. I'm going to play it again. There you have it. That was the smoking gun clip right there. Everyone seen it, and it was off the ball, had nothing to do with basketball, and was so blatant, right? Nobody is saying basketball shouldn't be a physical sport. The argument is that that's what's happening to Caitlin Clark is different. Now let's get into the article. So it says ex-White House staffer calls on federal government to protect Caitlin Clark from WNBA bullies. Makes no bones about it. Indiana Fever superstars Caitlin Clark is disproportionately targeted by opposing WNBA teams when it comes to hard fouls, and is part of the reason Clark has played in just half of her team's games this season. And Indiana has been able to tread water without Clark, but the issue is reaching critical mass for the WNBA, which has seen ratings drop dramatically without the league's biggest star healthy. Now, a former White House staffer is calling for the federal government to step in to protect Clark, whether she wants the help or not. So, a former White House staffer says Caitlin Clark's civil rights are being violated. Shawn McClean, who served as a White House advisor at the end of Donald Trump's first stint in office, penned an opinion piece for the Wall Street Journal calling on the government to step in and protect Clark from a hostile environment. And it goes on to say, this is what Shawn McClean had to say in quotes. The league has fostered a hostile workplace for Ms. Clark through excessive filing, targeted, and hostile comments from other players and owners. McClean claims these aren't isolated, they are documented, continuing, and ignored by officials. The disparity in treatment invites real scrutiny. Not a single player has been suspended for flagrantly filing Ms. Clark. McClean goes on to cite several Supreme Court cases that he feels paralleled Clark's situation. He also contends that the scope of Clark's treatment is larger than of a typical young star athlete entering a professional league. Ultimately, McClean feels that if the league won't properly protect Clark, the government has to. Ms. Clark, in Shawn McClean words and quotes, Ms. Clark's targeting may reflect a culture of desperate um, sorry, family, desperate treatment, and the evidence provides reasonable cause for a federal probe into potential civil rights violation, he writes. This would mirror the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission investigation into Derica Hamby's pregnancy discrimination claims against the WNBA and her team. Congress and the Labor and Justice Departments would be justified in examining the facts. And Shawn McClean's view of the Caitlin Clark situation is ridiculous. This, of course, an absolutely bogus view of things. Clark would tell you as much herself. She most certainly doesn't want the federal government meddling in the WNBA. And if anything, opinion pieces like this only stand to make life worse on Clark. And it's hardly the first time that a young athlete has faced this kind of treatment. Anyone who watches NHL, the National Hockey League, with any regulatory can tell you that Sidney Crosby was routinely targeted earlier in his career. Additionally, McClean's referral to Clark as Miss Clark may seem like a legalese, but it comes across as patronizing. Clark is not a participant in a court case. She is not a victim nor someone who needs McClean's help. This sort of behavior, as much as anything Clark does on the court, is why she's targeted by other players and fans. Outside actors who don't actually care about Clark attempt to speak on her behalf and demonize the league as well as opposing players. If McClean truly wanted to help Caitlin Clark, he'll remain quiet. All right? Now that's the article. Now, it was in Washington Journal, Streets Journal, opinion piece. And that was that. All right. So that was the call. And when you look at things, right, and you see how the argument is that what's happening to Caitlin Clark is different. WNBA Commissioner Kathleen Engelbert says it's a physical game trying to claim things or trying to calm things down. I mean to say, Kathleen Engelbert says it's a physical game trying to calm things down, but Clark's own coach, Stephanie White, as we know, has said all the beatings and the relentless physicality are directly contributing to her injuries. And it's a death by 1,000 cuts, and it's not about one hit. It's about the nonstop accumulation of shoves, bumps, and cheap shots that is wearing her down. And this is what makes the public believe this is just basketball. It's a targeted campaign the league is allowing. Now, I want to go to Stephanie White on the Caitlin Clark treatment, right? Because Caitlin Clark did have to say something in regard to the matter when it came to this whole situation. So check it out.
Work with her and Amber Cox and to be able to coach generational talent like Caitlin Clark. And, you know, we really do just have a great group of human beings and a strong group of women that are leading our organization.
And when Caitlin Clark does return to the floor, how is she going to help elevate this team even more down the stretch of the season?
Well, she demands.
Well, that's fresh. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in regards of the treatment. All right, let me go down. There you go down.
Certainly someone who has the ball in her hands as much as Caitlin. The physicality that she's experiencing for 40 minutes, it causes you to load differently, causes you to explode differently, it causes you to accelerate.
So you heard her, right? Read between the lines. She said the physicality that Caitlin Clark endures for the last 40 minutes, it causes you to explode differently or load differently, meaning the frustration on the court in regards of how the relentless physicality is definitely directly contributing to her injuries.
As much as Caitlin, the physicality, it is tough. Certainly someone who has the ball in her hands as much as Caitlin, the physicality that she's experiencing for 40 minutes, it causes you to load differently, causes you to explode differently, it causes you to accelerate and decelerate differently. It's not the free-flowing movement, that we want to see when.
So there you have it, right? And it's a messy, and this is what makes. Let me backtrack a little bit. It's not about one hit. It's not the nonstop accumulation of shoves, bumps, and cheap shots that is wearing her down. This is what makes the public believe this isn't just basketball. It's a targeted campaign the league is allowing, is where I'm getting at, right? And it's a messy, complicated situation with a lot of layers when you peel back the onion. And if you believe the WNBA has a fundamental duty to create a safe workplace for all its players, not just the famous ones, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our breakdown the next time a major story like this breaks. And this brings us to the next problem, which is the officiating. The entire civil rights argument hinges on the idea that the league is failing to enforce its own rules fairly, creating an unsafe environment. And if you don't believe me, just to substantiate my point, not only has Caitlin Clark been frustrated with these refs, but also Stephanie White, right? And you done seen Stephanie White basically explode with these refs coming at them all types of way in regards of this whistle that they don't seem to blow when it comes to the referees. We could pull it up. All right, let me see. Because she did make a remarks about officiating. Um, you see, she said this was bull crap. Now we all remember when she went off July 13th, and this is when they played that Dallas Wings, and she said this is BS, and she was hot, right? The officiating is crazy. So this is what brings to my next point. Um, the entire civil rights situation argument hinges on that idea. So it's like being a parent who has two kids, right? One kid can burn the house down and gets a pat on the back, while the other gets grounded for leaving a sock on the floor. And that may sound extreme, but that's how it is. And fans are seeing what they believe are dozens of obvious fouls on Clark go uncalled, and it creates this deep-seated feeling that the game is rigged. And the vacuum of authority has created a new hero, her teammate Sophia Cunningham, who becomes Clark's unofficial bodyguard. But the most important thing she did wasn't on the court; it was on her podcast. She basically confirmed. Let's check out what Sophia said because she said it. I did a video on it about Caitlin Clark being targeted, right? You can't make this stuff up. So
you have seen players in our league try to like toughen up Caitlin. We call her CC. CC. For even when I wasn't on her team, like I know the talks that Phoenix had in the locker room of like, no, we're gonna prove her, we're gonna show her what the W really is. You know what I mean? And like I get it to a certain extent, and like every rookie coming into the league, that's how you're gonna treat them. But
right.
there's just more for her. So it's her second year. And like now being on her team and like seeing it, I'm like, what are people doing? Like, actually, just it's just too much. Too much. Like,
So there you have it, right? So she went on her podcast and she basically confirmed what everyone suspected. She said that While all the rookies get tested, the target of Clark is on another level, calling some of the hits unacceptable. And when you have an insider or a teammate breaking the silence and saying, "Yes, you're not crazy. This is different." It's a bombshell validation for everyone who thinks there's an agenda. And this is where all the frustration, the hits, the refs, the silence melds into one powerful legal concept: a hostile work environment. And this isn't just a Twitter complaint, it's a real thing. The theory is that the WNBA is legally required to provide a workplace free from harassment. And the argument is that Clark is being targeted specifically because of who she is, the ultimate disruptor. And she's the new superstar whose fame and popularity have completely flipped the league's old power structure on its head. And the theory goes that the constant physical abuse combined with public comments from other players is a form of workplace harassment, and the league is failing to stop it. And that is an incredibly serious claim. And the league can say whatever it wants in press releases, but critics will just point to the next viral clip of Clark getting decked. Commissioner Engelbert can talk about she can talk about a bullying narrative, but that does nothing when the public sees what it sees with its own eyes. And the gap between the league says it's happening and what fans see is happening is where this lawsuit rumors are born. So after all that, what's the real story? What's the uncomfortable truth here? Here it is. Despite all the outrage and the screaming headlines, there is absolutely no credible evidence that Caitlin Clark or her team have filed a lawsuit against the WNBA. And it's not in any federal or state court database. I want to put that out there. So no legitimate journalist has reported it. The so-called huge WNBA lawsuit is for now a ghost. It's a story created and fueled by social media. But here's the part that is 100% real. The crisis is real. The anger is real. The physical toll on Clark is real. The WNBA is facing a crisis of perception that could be just as devastating as any legal battle, and they were caught flat footed, completely unprepared for a cultural force of this magnitude. And they are in a trap. They need to sell the league as tough, but they also have to protect the single most valuable asset in the history of their sport. And that civil rights argument, while not a legal filing, has become the perfect banner for millions of people who feel like they are watching a deep injustice play out in real time. So while the lawsuit may only be loaded in our minds, the pressure on the WNBA is very, very real and is not going away. And now I want to hear from you. Let's have a real honest discussion in the comments. Is this all just tough physical basketball, or has the WNBA completely lost control and allowed the hostile environments to take over? Let me know what you think. I'll catch you in the next one. On that note, family, peace.